What's up, everybody? I'm Katie.
And I'm Morgan.
And this is For Your Misinformation, a podcast dedicated to empowering women to be more politically engaged so we can act in our own best interests.
Let us break down the problem and tell you what we're doing and what you can do to help solve it.
Hi, Morgan.
Hey, Katie.
I am tired. I feel like we are at a crossroads where, like, the November election is the last real chance for us to decide if we want to try to, for like the first time ever, be an inclusive democracy. And that if Joe Biden doesn't win, it seems like it's going to be almost impossible to keep it from becoming like a white nationalist kleptocracy. And with those stakes, like, oh my God, I'm so tired all the time. And then it's like, well, get over it, because like this is for all the marbles. And like, if Biden loses, I can't even imagine having another like remotely free and fair election. And like, I feel like people are afraid to say it because it sounds alarmist, but like, I don't know. I feel like it's important to call it out. Like, Bernie called it authoritarianism at the Democratic National Convention, and like, that's absolutely right. And like, of course we're tired, but then it's like, well, we got to keep going. Mm-hmm. And I think I've been like lacking on the self-care and just like glossing over it. So I think on purpose, I'm going to spend like extra time in that section today. I talked to my therapist today, so he gave some like good advice. So I think most of us probably need it. So there's some free advice from a therapist at the end, and some foster kitten updates too. So yeah, I don't know. It's a heavy time. I think let's like talk about something that like bleeds into our other interest of true crime, but might have more to do with like current events than people realize. I want to talk about the Golden State Killer. And part of the reason is because he was a cop. So if you are listening to this the day that it comes out, that means that the election is in 9 weeks or 64 days, however you prefer to think about it. So I hope everybody is thinking about like what kind of activism they can squeeze in like once a week or a couple times a week, whether it be phone banking or text banking or letter writing or donating to whatever, because this is like the home stretch.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I know that it sounds like we're exaggerating when we say things like authoritarianism and its rise in this country and the end of democracy. But I really, like, everyone's heard about the whole frog in boiling water thing, right? Like, if you throw a frog into boiling water, it jumps out because it's too much. But if you slowly heat up that water, the frog doesn't realize it until it's dying. That's kind of America right now. I mean, even just like for one simple and timely example with the RNC, with the Republican National Convention this week, and these violations of the Hatch Act and the way that
that's such a good
House,
example.
the People's House, the mall, the Capitol Mall is being used for a political party and for a political candidate
against the law.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen?
Nothing's going to happen. And we're being gaslit to think that this kind of thing is normal. And it's like, yes, like nobody's going to die because of this violation, but we just get so accustomed to it. And yeah, it's again, it's like the frog in boiling water thing. We get so accustomed to literally the president of the United States breaking the law.
And the media is fucking it up so bad.
Yeah,
the media is fucking it up so bad that we had to make a podcast. Like, people are saying, like, I don't know, is the public going to care about these Hatch Act violations? And it's like, what? That's not the point. Like, did anybody care that the Golden State Killer was murdering? I mean, yes, no, because a lot of them didn't know about it, but like that's not the point. The point is that like he's doing the murdering. Yeah.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
oh my God. Yes. So, yeah,
It's like if a tree falls down in the forest and no one's around to hear it, that's still one less fucking tree in the forest.
Mhm.
And the forests need all the trees they can get. Just
Yeah.
like we, as the American people, need all hands on deck right now to make sure our country doesn't fall
Yeah.
into deeper into this autocracy that
Yeah.
is growing each week.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
it
Yes.
is actually scary, and that is why we're exhausted, but there's still hope, right? There is still
Yeah.
hope, but also like we can't, we're about to talk about the Golden State Killer and spoilers and whatever, but we can't sit and wait for a Michelle McNamara or a Paul Holes
Yes.
for somebody to save us. Like
We all have to be them.
We have to save us.
Yes. Yes. So what are you I like to think about it in terms of like hours per week, or I mean, month. It gets like a little bit too overwhelming for me. But I know I told you, I don't know how long ago now, a long time ago, that I was dedicated to writing 20 letters a week. I don't know what that math comes out to, but I think I just wrote my 540th one. So like that adds up so quickly. I mean, I did write more than 20 a week, but I'm just saying like that started off with me setting a goal of writing 20 a week until the election. And now it's for 540 or 560 letters, which is just crazy. Like, like, I don't know, just that's cool. And then spoiler alert, I'll talk about it at the end, but I did my first text banking and it was so fun and so easy, and there was no reason for me to be anxious about it, which is a lesson that I should learn and apply to other areas of my life, but I will not. I refuse. Okay. So yes. So I liked it so much, and I think it was so effective that, like, I don't know, it takes me an hour, a little bit over an hour if I'm writing like really pretty letters to write 20. In 2 hours, I text banked to 400 in an hour. Yeah, I don't know, 400 people.
I remember you telling
like
me it was like 400 something people.
And it was fun. It was easy. I don't know. So I'm going to do that. I feel like I can commit to doing 2 shifts a week of text banking. So that probably puts me around like 5-ish hours of activism a week, maybe a little bit more, but like it gets a lot done. And also the text banking, especially, I mean, you can like kind of watch TV, kind of listen to a podcast. You can definitely listen to music while you're writing letters, but like the text banking is so easy, and like you're kind of like you send out your 400, 200 texts, 400 texts, whatever, and then you kind of just wait for them to come back. And even when they come back, Indivisible has already thought about every single possible answer they could have come back with. Even if they come back with "fuck you," they tell you what to say. Like, you don't have to worry. You're just being helpful. Like, especially in my situation, we were connecting voters in Pennsylvania with their mail-in ballots. So like it wasn't even like, I think you should vote for so-and-so. It was just, hey, like, do you want to vote by mail? Like, do you know what you have to do to, I have all the links that you could need. I can answer every question I know. Like, and even the questions that aren't related, like you're just connecting people in swing states with information that they need to vote. And it's like so gratifying. And I'm going to say, like, I think it's easier to reach more voters more quickly. I don't know, like it, and you're being more helpful than just saying like, hey, vote. So I don't know, maybe my new favorite form of activism.
Yeah. And like one of those swing states that it's not too late to sign up for, to adopt a state with Vote Save America, is Wisconsin, where, I mean, if you have been paying any attention at all, you know, a lot of shit is going down right now. And usually that inspires a lot of change. Not always, because, you know, America, whatever. But yeah, like there's a little bit of a revolution right now happening, or people trying to cause change in Wisconsin. And you could adopt Wisconsin and contribute to those changes being made no matter where you live, regardless of whether or not you're able to actually physically put your body out there. So yeah, just want to encourage everybody to remember they can still do that too.
for sure. And as always, Black Lives Matter, defund the police, and that white supremacist who murdered protesters, like, call that what it is. It's white supremacist terrorism. And it was supported and encouraged by his parents. So let's be careful out there. Okay. I want to talk about the Golden State Killer. Trigger warning, clearly there's a lot of violence, sexual assault, general evil shit. Most of the information in this episode is from I'll Be Gone in the Dark, which is this series on HBO, which is based on Michelle McNamara's book, which somehow neither of us have read, even though we love this stuff.
We are the worst murderinos.
I know.
But,
yeah.
What? Well, how have we not read this yet?
I think I texted you yesterday and I was like, I've done so much research for this episode, but like all I needed to do was read that book because somebody already did that. So Michelle McNamara is, if you know who Patton Oswalt is, his late wife, who we'll talk about her later for sure. But yes, but neither of us have read that book, but apparently it's a great book.
Part of the reason I haven't read it is because of Michelle McNamara, and like it's just like I love her, and I feel like if I read it, then I'm gonna be like really sad because she's not alive to see all this happen.
Yeah. So I also got information from the Murder Squad podcast and the Man in the Window podcast, Wikipedia, every article I could find. I don't know. And I want to talk about it now for a couple different reasons. So first, he was just sentenced to life in prison last week in August without the possibility of parole. So, and then the other reason is he was caught in 2018 because of familial DNA, which is crazy and awesome. Yeah. And I think we're probably like in the beginning of that happening to a lot of other, in a lot of other high profile cases. But the real reason I want to talk about it is because Joseph DeAngelo was a cop. And that's part of the reason that he got away with all this shit for so long. He, like I said, so he committed all these rapes and murders in the 70s and 80s in California. He didn't get caught until 2018 because of DNA evidence. Like, the cops didn't catch him. He, okay, so I don't know. While you're listening, I just want you to think about the culture of policing and how this man just fit right the fuck in, and how much he hated women enough to rape and murder them for years. And just got fit right in as a cop. And just pay attention to the instances where toxic masculinity hurts men and women. Because I think people often focus on how it hurts women. That is very obvious, but it has very, very clear negative impacts on men also.
Yeah, totally. It hurts all of society.
We should all be pissed about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So his name is Joseph James DeAngelo, better known as the Golden State Killer. He has been in the news recently because he was just sentenced. He will never get out. Even if you're not a true crime person, I know some people aren't true crime people because the cases aren't solved. This one's solved. He's in jail. He'll never get out. Never get out of jail ever. Not that, I don't know, whatever. Fuck this guy. Anyway, he murdered at least 13 people. He raped more than 50 women, and he burglarized more than 120 homes all over California in the 70s and 80s. And the areas that he was active in were just absolutely terrorized for years. And eventually, some really dedicated citizen detectives, including Michelle McNamara and actual detectives like Paul Holes, finally were able to use DNA against him that was submitted to a DNA database by like a distant relative. And that's what ended up like doing him in. So as with all rapes, the rape is not the thing, the power and the control is the thing. So he wasn't always known as the Golden State Killer. So because he was so prolific and struck like all over the state, like if you look at a map, let me text you a map of this because it's hard to like grasp where he like how the just like the geographics of like where he was hitting if you haven't seen a map. Sorry, Ben, can you cut out that boring part, the long silence where I find this map?
Yeah, he really did though. I mean, so much.
Yeah.
So much area. The Man in the Window podcast, so good though.
Yes.
So good.
No, I don't want this. I have it open in the tab. When we're done, can we talk about, like, you know how we had, like, I don't even remember. I think it was probably in May, honestly. Like, we were like, okay, our next batch will be about, like, reality winner and da-da-da. Like, can we decide what that is?
Yeah.
I don't know what we're doing. I don't know what our theme is. Don't die of depression as our country falls into authoritarianism.
Yeah, that works.
All right, I just texted you the map. When you get it, tell me, I don't know, tell me what you see.
Downloading. All right. So, yeah, this guy, whoo boy, that is a lot. He definitely, targeted areas. It kind of looks like a lot of different communities around Sacramento, Santa Barbara, Irvine, Modesto. Yeah, and then more like San Ramon, Danville, Walnut Creek. And he definitely did them in like on a timeline of years.
Yeah.
Like that's attached to this map.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that timeline is so useful.
It really is. God, what a monster.
Yes, exactly. He's a monster.
And then, of course, Visalia.
Yes. So because he was striking all over the place and these cops didn't have a system of working together, they called him a bunch of different things. So because they didn't think it was one person, they thought it was a bunch of different people. So he was known as the Visalia ransacker, the Cordova cat burglar, the East Area Rapist, which is referring to like the eastern part of Sacramento, the original Night Stalker, which eventually, when they realized that the East Area Rapist and the original Night Stalker were the same person, they started calling him Urons, like East Area Rapist hyphen original Night Stalker. Not the most catchy slogan. He also was known as the Diamond Knot Killer and like a bunch of other stuff. He was everywhere. But Rancho Cordova was kind of like his home base, which is where it's hard to say that he like grew up anywhere. He was in the military, like his dad was in the military, but he like felt an attachment to a family like that was friends from his he was friends with from his childhood from Rancho Cordova. So he like kind of operated out of there. But going back to like Urons, just like a terrible name. That's one of the ways that Michelle McNamara really helped. So she was just like a true crime writer and person who wanted to know shit. Like so she started investigating because these crimes were very solvable. Like there was DNA evidence was getting better and better, like by the month. So it was really kind of only a matter of time before he was caught. And Michelle knew that like nobody like wanted to gossip about earons. Like that just doesn't sound cool. So, and it also doesn't really get across like how he was literally everywhere in California. Like if you have a relative who lived in California in the 70s and 80s, like they probably have some concern about this person.
Yeah.
So she rebranded him as the Golden State Killer, and that's part of the reason that he is in jail now. So yeah, if you don't like true crime stories, this one ends with the bad guy going to jail forever. Sorry, my dog is wanting to get in the room, and then I'll let him in, and then he'll want to leave. Jasper? No? Okay. Sorry, Ben, can you take that out? He didn't even want to come in, so I don't know, just whatever.
Dogs, they're so weird. Mine are tippy tapping right outside this room too.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
So he got away with just absolutely terrorizing California in the 70s and 80s. He was a prowler. So he was regularly peeking into people's homes, especially from their backyards. Have you ever been to California?
Yeah, a couple times.
So he liked neighborhoods where houses were pretty close together. So like suburbs where houses were pretty close together, especially if there was like a canal in the back, like it was really easy to get, or a park nearby, or somewhere where he could escape on foot. So, and he did so much surveillance, like late at night, like between the hours of like 12 a.m. and like 6 a.m. He was like very regularly out, like just staking shit out, like casing neighborhoods, figuring out like where the young women were, and like figuring out their schedules and when they would be alone, and what it was just, he was just like a fucking pest, really. He's just a pest.
Well, and I feel like with police training, he is going to be so much better at that than just your average person.
Yeah, he thinks that way. Yeah, he knows how police think, so it helped him for sure.
Yeah, he knows how the police are going to handle things, so he's going to be able to get away, because and that makes me really angry.
Yeah, he did almost get caught a couple times, but never. And that's honestly kind of frustrating when you see how easy it would have been if they just fucking prioritized women's like health, safety. And the men too. I don't mean to. Okay, and this is something that people do all the time, and I want to not do that. People leave the men out. So we'll talk about it. But he was violent as fuck towards everybody, and people like none of the reasons that reasons that he is being put in jail has anything to do with the terror. Like half the people he murdered were men, but when he was raping the women, he was also like tying up and terrorizing the men, and like raping their favorite person in the world, like in the living room, and there's nothing that they could do about it. So that is absolutely trauma too, and I do not mean to like minimize that or leave the men out. Even in some of the police reports, they referred to the men as witnesses instead of like victims, which is, so I don't mean to do that.
Yeah.
Their toxic masculinity, part of the reason that the men don't want to come forward is because of toxic masculinity. They feel like they should have been able to protect their home and their spouse. But yeah, so he was also like pretty athletic. He could hop a fence and just like disappear into the fog. It's also pretty foggy in California, especially in the mornings. So during that time, he raped over 50 women, murdered more than 10 people, and like straight up and down the coast. And one of the reasons that he got away with it for so long is because he was a police officer. He knew they didn't work together. He knew if he wore a mask and gloves, which he always did, he was essentially like invisible. So DNA later proved that the Visalia ransacker and the East Area rapist and the original Night Stalker were all the same person, but he started as a peeping Tom. Then he graduated to a ransacker, so he would go into people's houses. They called this like a hot prowl, so he'd go in at night when they were sleeping, and he would go through all their shit and like eat their food in their refrigerator, like leave it out. Like he just wanted people to know that he'd been like violated their privacy and like invaded their space.
Just escalated so much too.
Yes.
From like just being a creep peeping in people's windows, which isn't cool, to like actual rape and murder.
Right.
And I feel like that, and that's a reason that we need to take things seriously, even when they start small.
Yep. Like his neighbors were like, it's just crazy neighbor Joe. But it's like, nope, like not at all. Not harmless. It is weird though, because he did straight up just stop. Like he didn't murder anybody after 1986 and just lived the rest of his life without, I don't know.
So
Shit's
weird.
insane.
Yeah.
We'll get to it. So yes, so then he was a ransacker. He would do like hot prowls, which is apparently like indicative of, like, it's not really about the stuff in their house. It's about like the thrill of like being in somebody's house while they're asleep and like almost getting caught, whatever. And then he graduated to a rapist. Then he graduated to a murderer. He stayed just as a rapist for a really long time. Like psychologists who were trying to like profile him were saying that he was just like looking for an excuse to murder, and they still didn't like prioritize it, or I don't know. So yeah, they simply just didn't consider rape a violent crime. They treated it more like a property crime, like it was something that was committed against the man of the house. Like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like your woman was like, this one's no good anymore. Like we'll get you a new one. You know, it's just like the grossest. I hate it. Yeah. And people didn't know how to deal with it. Like couples especially didn't know how to deal with it. Like, most of the time they didn't stay together. There is, if you watch the I'll Be Gone in the Dark on Hulu, there is like one pretty cute couple who did stay together, and like it brought them closer and whatever. Like they decided to move forward together, but they sought therapy, and a lot of people don't want to do that. Even the man in that relationship will only go to therapy with his wife. Like he doesn't think he needs therapy, but like as part of, and it's just like, it's such a bummer that people still think that way. Every single person would benefit from therapy. I promise.
Everyone. Yeah, it's so true. I think especially the people who don't think they need any therapy are going to benefit from some kind of therapy.
Yes.
And especially men who, many of them anyway, not all of them, but many of them grow up either explicitly or just like subtly being taught that the only acceptable emotions are anger and you know, rage and you know, those kinds of things, and which, I mean, that there's no way that can be healthy. And
what an excellent segue. I couldn't do better if I tried. But yes, okay, so it does not seem like he had an awesome childhood. He was the oldest of 4 kids, and he had like pretty absent parents. So like I talked about, his dad was in the military. They moved around a lot. He didn't really have like a home. I mean, like he wasn't without housing, but like he didn't have a hometown or anything like that. Even the homes that he moved into, like they moved in for a year at a time. Even the furniture like wasn't their furniture. Like it was sold as is. Like they moved in for a year and then they moved out. So not a lot of like stability. His mom worked too. So he kind of raised his brothers and sisters. It also sounds like he experienced some abuse from his dad, uh, and maybe even saw his 7-year-old sister getting raped by German soldiers when he was 9. That is like testimony from a family member of his. Like, I don't want to say I don't believe any of that, but also like this was said after they found out that he was a serial rapist and murderer, and they were probably looking for like reasons that a person would turn out that way. So I'm not saying that that's like not true or it is true, but that is what like one of their family members said. They were like overseas as a family because of his dad was in the military. So, but basically, he was forced to become super responsible and take care of his younger siblings. He did all of their laundry. He did packed their lunches, made sure they were up for school. And then eventually when it was time, he joined the Navy and he became a veteran of the Vietnam War, though he never saw active duty. And by the time he is an adult, he's like 5'10", medium build, blonde hair, blue eyes. I think there's a picture on that timeline, right?
Yeah.
He's just, I don't know how to describe what he looks like. He has,
like regular looking dude, kind of
when
meaty.
He's younger, he's kind of even like dopey looking. Like his face is like very round and
kind of meaty faced.
Mm-hmm. Meaty. That's perfect. Yes. So by this time, he's already known to like be very quiet, to keep to himself. He doesn't share even with these friends. He never talks about his feelings until he boils over and he just beats the shit out of somebody. And like they told at least one story about that from like school. Like he like reaches a boiling point, beats the shit out of this kid, and then just like walks away and doesn't acknowledge it ever again. And it's just like, oh boy, somebody help this person deal with whatever they're dealing with, please. So when we're talking about like defunding the police, pause, this guy's not even a police officer yet. He's in high school and he clearly has some anger management problems. Like, let's get some community resources for that kid so that like before he becomes the Golden State Killer,
right?
You know, like
that's and like let's make sure people with guns and authority as law enforcement officers have the emotional self-regulation to not do that. Like, let's do that.
Right. Yes. Okay. So, in the late 60s, he serves in the Navy in the Vietnam War. When he gets back, he attends Sacramento State University, where I believe the Karen Kilgariff also went for a little bit. And he earned his bachelor's degree in criminal justice. And that is where he meets and gets engaged to Bonnie. And Bonnie is a little bit younger than him. She is smart. She is driven. I really like her. And she is like a pretty significant player, whether she likes it or not. So she was Joseph DeAngelo's first love, really, and she rules. She wanted to be a doctor, but her dad sucked and told her that it was a waste of money to send women to universities, but he agreed to send her to the local community college to be a nurse. And that's where she met Joseph DeAngelo. And if her dad hadn't been such a dick, she would have gone to university. But anyway.
That also makes me irrationally angry.
It is okay. There's no shame in going to a community college. It's super smart, especially now. Like, honestly, I can't believe I didn't do that. I feel irresponsible for not doing it. Oops. Anyway.
Parents don't get to make those decisions for their kids, though.
True. Yeah.
Like, no, you can't do this. You have to do that because this is what I have deemed acceptable for you.
Right. Yeah. I lost my train of thought. What was I going to say next? Do you remember?
You were going to talk about Bonnie and Joe.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So yes, community colleges are cool, but if your daughter wants to become a doctor, let your daughter become a fucking doctor. Be supportive. What's wrong with you? Anyway. Bonnie, at this point, noted that he's super comfortable trespassing. like breaking laws already, but he already has a goal of being a California State Patrolman. So already pretty fucked up that he's like, rules aren't for me, but I want to be the person to enforce the laws. So that's a red flag. But I think Bonnie is like 18 or something. Like she's very young. She's like 18 or 19 at this point. So yeah, see, he, and he's probably already a prowler too. It just based on like, he seems comfortable doing all this shit, but yeah, so he wants to be part of the California Highway Patrol, but rules are not for him. And he actually seems to be kind of a lot like Bonnie's dad, and not in like any good ways. Bonnie and her dad obviously didn't get along. They had like kind of an adversarial relationship, but Bonnie's dad was also a veteran, and he didn't really care for Joe at first, but they like bonded because Joe had a war injury. He was like missing part of an index finger, and he told her dad that that he like lost it in combat, but he never saw active duty. And another friend of his said he lost it in like a mechanic accident. And
what a weird thing to lie about.
Well, it worked, which is so lame. It like kind of endeared him to Bonnie's dad. Like they bonded over being war veterans and like tough guys who don't share their feelings. But like, I don't know, isn't stolen valor like a big deal? Like, don't people hate that shit?
I mean, it definitely should be a big deal because
yeah,
that's really shitty.
Everybody
also just like weird.
Yeah. So don't be like them. Eventually they get engaged. He gets the ring. No input from Bonnie, not interested. It's like a really high solitaire. She doesn't like it. It keeps getting caught on everything, especially in labs. Like when she puts her gloves on and stuff, she hates it. Probably a bad sign. And one day they have one class together, and it's abnormal psychology, and they have a test coming up, and Joe says, I want you to sit to the left of me and let me cheat off of your paper. And she's like, no. And he gets so mad, like he like inconsolably like upset, and he's like, you can't say no to me, like we're engaged, like what do you think you're doing? And like that is a very like weird, scary situation at the time, but like looking back, she was like, oh, it's because I set a boundary and he didn't like it. Like and there's a lesson in there. If you set a boundary and somebody freaks out, that's a bad sign. You don't want a controlling partner. So eventually they break up over this, and the next week he shows up to abnormal psychology holding some other girl's hand, and she is just like, oh my God, like literally this guy's such a loser. Like he's a dangerous loser. And this is now it gets like not funny. So I think the week after that, or a couple weeks after that, he shows up outside Bonnie's window at her family home with a flashlight held like a law enforcement officer, up like above their, like by next to their head, and a gun pointed at her. And so he's, I think, in his early 20s, like he's a veteran at this point. He's like in college, probably just about to graduate. His younger girlfriend is like, yo, I'm not interested in marrying you. I don't think we're a good match. And he can't handle it. He just cannot handle rejection. Like, I don't know. We've gotten used to it. And we didn't turn into murderers, and I'm pretty sure we're not going to. I think.
Yeah, like rejection sucks, but all humans experience it.
So you better figure it out sooner rather than later.
Don't get to murder people over it.
Right.
Like,
precisely.
or even threaten to murder people over it. You don't. Just
keep, I don't know. It's going to be okay. Work harder next time. Okay, anyway. He points the gun at her, says, get dressed. We're going to Vegas, and we are getting married. So she gets up, and she's like, well, I guess I'll tell my dad. Like, he sucks, but there's a guy here with a gun, so I guess I'm going to tell him. And he says, like, I don't know who else she's going to tell. So he says, lock yourself in the bathroom. I'm going to go talk to Joe. And that's it. So she locks herself in the bathroom. She's like shaking. And he goes outside to talk to Joe. And finally, after like an hour or two, he comes back and he opens the door and he's like, okay, Bonnie, like you can go to bed. And that's it. They never talk about it. He doesn't even tell the family what happened. Like she never sees Joe again, which is good. But like he never called the cops because he was worried about Joe's future.
I hate that. Like, fuck on you, Bonnie's dad, because
he's the asshole of this week of this episode, and this is about a serial rapist and murderer. Because if this man, yes, exactly, if this man was as concerned about his daughter's future as he was about this random strange white man who showed up at his house at 2 a.m. with a gun, then like this could have, because he knew that he wanted to be a police officer and that if he had this record, he would never be able to be a police officer. Yeah. And maybe that's a fucking good thing.
Maybe none of this ever would have happened.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have been a police officer. They would have known about him. Maybe he once there was a Visalia ransacker, maybe they would have looked into him, or, like, it's just.
Yep, I know.
We do not.
We're not like, it's not an overreaction to say like toxic masculinity hurts people. Like that's that, that's what that is.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It's one example of how that is. So anyway, so they don't get married, but he never moves on. He just cannot handle rejection. And many of the victims later report him crying during the rapes and saying, I hate you, Bonnie. I hate you, Bonnie. Some of them think it might be I hate you, Mommy. But like looking back, they think it's probably Bonnie. And this is like why I just like love Bonnie. She as soon as she hears that, she's like, fuck that. I refuse to take responsibility for that. Like, what was she supposed to do? Marry that guy? Like, no, I don't think so. Like, that's just another form of victim blaming, and it is so gross, and I hate it, and like it has to stop. Like, it is not in any way. Even Paul Holes did this a little bit. It is not Bonnie's fault that this freak turned into a murderer and a rapist. Like, she just.
Yeah, listen to the Man in the Window podcast if you like true
they
crime
do a
and
great
have
job.
it. Yeah, it is great. And like this thing, like, go Bonnie. Recently, people might have heard about it. A runner was killed. A beautiful young woman was killed while she was running, and like, all the posts about it in the media are like, this woman was killed while running. Here's what women should do to stay safe while jogging. And I'm like, okay, I mean, safety tips are fine, whatever, but also like, maybe let's not attach these safety tips to a story about someone who got killed, because I mean, that implies that maybe if she had done these things, she would be alive. And actually, maybe if her murderer hadn't murdered, she would still be alive. Mm-hmm. And the other thing was, people were saying, well, he knew her, so apparently he did it because she had rejected him. And I'm like, no, he didn't do this because of anything she did. Mm-hmm. He killed her because he is a killer. Mm-hmm. That's it. It's not because she rejected him. It's not because she wouldn't give him a chance. It's because of him and his problems. Yeah, not because of anything she inspired.
Yeah, she was killed because she met a murderer.
Yep. None of that. Again, we do not victim blame on this podcast.
Exactly. Yes. So, 1972, he is later. I think he graduates it. Yeah, I think he must graduate in 1972. And then he goes on to take postgraduate courses and further police training. And then he even completes a 32-week police internship at the Roseville Police Department. That is a long-ass internship. But anyway, you would imagine with all this schooling and postgraduate courses and training that he'd be just like an excellent cop, right?
You would think.
No.
Yeah, but he's not.
He's not. But also keep in mind, like, what the fuck are these people doing? What are the cops doing when they're not catching him? They are arresting black and brown people for nonviolent drug offenses and putting them in jail.
Yeah.
Like, it's all connected and it goes all the way to the top. Okay, so 1973 is the start of the series where he is known as the Visalia Ransacker. So that's the year that he gets married to another smart, strong-willed woman who looks a lot like Bonnie. She's still alive and she lives in California. I'm not going to tell you guys too much about their family because they're still alive and they probably are not interested in this publicity. So they live in California and they eventually have 3 daughters together. Between 1973 and 1976, he's working as a cop. He ransacks at least 125 homes and accidentally murders one person who disrupts his plans. So while he's like the Visalia Ransacker and the East Area Rapist, he does accidentally murder like I think 3 people, but it's all part of like when his plans go wrong. It's not like he's going there for the murder. It's like somebody who accidentally saw his face or something like that. But so he does murder them, but he doesn't. It's like accidental. It's a little bit different than the other ones. So these are like the hot prowls that I talked about earlier while the residents are home and asleep. So lots of people report seeing someone peeking in their windows or finding footprints under their windows in their flower beds. He breaks into their home, eats their food, like takes like cufflinks or small tokens, destroys their stuff just for fun. And all the while he's on the burglary task force at work.
It's like when the arsonist turns out to be a firefighter.
Yes.
Oh boy.
But he wasn't even good at being a cop. Like his supervisors kept having to remind him of like basic shit. Like don't shine your flashlight at your partner in the dark because then they become an easy target. Like you learn that like scuba diving. I've never even been scuba diving, and I know you're not supposed to shine a light at a fish in the dark because then like a bigger fish with teeth will come eat it. Like he can't grasp basic stuff scuba divers can grasp. I don't understand. But like besides that, one of his supervisors mentions like how close he gets to somebody when he's handcuffing them and how you have to keep a little like more distance because if you get too close then they can steal your gun. And he's not good at taking constructive criticism. Like he gets all pouty and like I just think about he's a grown ass adult man who's a police officer who pouts when his boss like tells him like, hey, could you maybe do this to keep yourself safe and also your fellow police officer?
I feel like if he had Twitter, it would look exactly like Donald Trump's.
Oh my God, yes. But like, I wouldn't even want to coach an 8-year-old that had this attitude. No. Like, we would have a long talk and it would probably never happen again. Like,
it's probably that guy in the gym who's always like going up to women and telling them how they're doing things wrong.
Please don't talk to me. Please don't talk to me. Please don't talk to me.
No.
So yes. And then, okay, not related, but also his nickname is Junk Food Joey at work because he's always like snacking on chips and like pop and stuff. He always has like a candy bar.
Wow. There is one relatable quality about the Golden State Killer. We have found it.
And he enjoys boating. I also enjoy, but I like being on boats.
Okay, I hate boating because I think water is terrible and humans don't belong on or near water because if we did, we would have fins and gills. So I will disagree on the boating thing, but.
All right, we're going to have to discuss this offline. This is quite a blow. I think I think we'll probably come through the other side, but
we'll be okay.
Water is soothing. I don't know what you're talking about, but anyway, JK, I had to be, actually, I've probably told you this story. I I've swam in 2 open water races, and they were really fun, and I'm glad that I did them. But I almost didn't do the first one because my therapist, while I was telling him about my fear of like water where you can't see the bottom, was like, "What are you afraid of? Muskies?" And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Muskie, like, is that what you're afraid of?" And I was like, "I don't even know what that is. I'm afraid of I don't know what I'm afraid of. Like the shit at the bottom. Are there dead bodies in there? Are there the things from Harry Potter in there? Are there, like, is it gillyweed? Is it going to grab me? Is it going to pull me down? Are there snapping turtles? Are there?" And then, so new thing to add to my fears is muskies, which are these like fish that get really, really fucking long and have really, really big teeth. Anyway.
Yeah, I feel like large bodies of water are a lot like outer space. And humans just don't belong in them. They're awesome to study, and they're vast and fascinating and beautiful in terms of like the universe, but humans don't belong there.
Okay. Okay, I'll consider. We can revisit later. So 1976 is around the time that he switches police departments. Don't really know why. But it's also the time when the ransackings escalate to rapes. So the ransackings continue. He just adds a rape into the mix. He starts in Rancho Cordova, which is kind of his home base. He rapes a young girl home alone on a Friday night. He says, "I will put this knife through your throat and then I'll be gone in the dark." It took me forever to figure out why these things were called "I'll be gone in the dark." That's why.
Oh.
And then over the next 3 years, he commits 50 more sexual assaults and 1 murder, 1 like accidental murder. So most of the first sexual assaults were on teenagers. And then the media points that out, that he's not targeting homes where a man is present, that he's, which like insults him. And then he starts exclusively attacking couples. So he's like very clearly paying attention to the media. They also said that he like didn't target homes with big dogs, and then like all the shelters emptied of dogs, and then he started using dog repellent. So frequently he would like case the house. They would experience lots of hang-up calls in the weeks leading up to the attack, figure out when the house is empty. Often he would like break in during the day and find their guns, unload their guns, or like unlock a window or unlock a door, or like put ropes under their couch cushions so that when he comes back later, he like had what he needed there already. Like once a woman even finds a rope under her couch cushion, calls the police, tells them, and they're like, "Oh, we'll be on the lookout," and they like don't catch him. Like they know that that is a home that's gonna be targeted, and they still manage to fuck it up. And then he does it like 49 more times. It's just really sad. And also like the other thing is just like they don't release very much information. Like so much of this information would have been helpful for women and like for everybody to protect themselves, but they don't release this information, and they say it's like for good reasons, but it seems a lot like because it makes them look bad. So yeah. So he would like break in while a couple was sleeping, holding a flashlight like law enforcement, usually toss shoelaces on the bed, make the woman tie up the man, then he would tie up the woman, and then he would re-tie up the man like tighter to make sure that he was tied up adequately. And then he would usually go to the kitchen, get some plates, come back, put them on the man's back, and tell him that he would murder everybody in the house if he heard the plates rattle. Then he would take the woman to the living room, usually rape her repeatedly, like 5 to 8 times, like he was there for hours. And he would like take a break, look in the fridge, have a snack, look through the cabinets and drawers, and then come back. Like it's just so much more than like, it's so much like power and control, and like, look, I can be in your shit and there's nothing you can do. And he would also like give conflicting information, like misleading information to the couples. Like he'd tell the man that he was like 44, and then like the woman that he was like 24. He'd tell the man that like he better see this on the news or he's coming back tomorrow, and then he'd tell the woman that like she better not tell anybody or he's coming back to, like, it would just be like really, he was like a sadist. He loved to terrify people. Like that was the like what he got off on. Also, like what I don't know, the way that people treated rape around this time is really alarming, but also the way that people, like, I could not understand. He wasn't even the most active rapist in Sacramento Valley at the time. Like, there were 6 or 7 other rapists who were just as active, some of them, that just, he was the most violent one, but like they were more active. They talked just like casually about the early bird rapist, which is a different guy who attacks early in the morning, like the stinky rapist, which was a legitimate name because he like smelled bad. But there were just people, I don't know. It's like terrible creepy men figured out that that's a thing that they could get away with without consequences and decided to go for it. I don't know.
I mean, when it's not taken seriously by the public, seems like it's a lot easier to get away with, for sure.
For sure. They even, in one area, they had a town hall to talk about like what was going on in the community, and one man stood up and asked a question, and he was like, I don't understand, like, how could anybody let this man rape their wife like while they were in the home to like protect them, and which is just such a shitty thing to say. But like 2 or 3 weeks later he attacked that guy's house, which made people think that he was at the meeting, and he could have been at the meeting as a police officer. He could have been there in a work capacity. Like, we don't know. Ugh. And we'll never know. But I mean, maybe he could talk, I guess. But yeah. So I don't know. That guy learned firsthand how that happens, which is awful. And this drives me insane. All right, 1979, he gets caught stealing dog repellent and a hammer, and he is fired the next month. So back in 1979, if you were a cop and you got caught, you got arrested for stealing, you were no longer allowed to be a cop. In 2020, you're allowed to shoot an unarmed black man in the back 7 times and not even have your name released. Like, do we even know what that fucking guy from Kenosha's name is? I don't.
I don't actually think I do know.
Yeah. I don't know if they've released the officer's name.
I don't know if any credible sources have. I think I saw it like in a Facebook post, but I was like, I don't know. Like, again, I don't know if this is credible. Yeah, that's so true. Or like, you can fuck up at your job so bad that you break into the wrong house and shoot a sleeping woman and not get arrested.
Yes.
Not even lose. Did he lose his job at least now? The cop who killed Breonna Taylor? There's so many, I can't even keep them all straight these days.
I don't think so, but I don't know.
Then I need to keep a spreadsheet.
Do we? I mean, maybe somebody
Also, he was caught stealing dog repellent and a hammer. Hello? We know that this person's using dog repellent that didn't set off any red flags.
It's so weird, like, to listen to all these interviews where people are talking about how like everybody's on edge about this, and then it's like, then how come nobody was tipped off by and the other thing, he like goes berserk. Like, he doesn't handle it well. He's like, well, I'm a cop, like, you can't, and they're like, you still can't steal, sir. And he's like, nah. It's so weird. Again, like, he handles it like a child.
You have a person who cannot handle their emotions, who knows a lot about cops because he is one, caught stealing things used by a criminal who is currently in the area, and nobody looks into any of this. Like, nobody puts these things together.
Well,
no one needs dog repellent except for people who are breaking into homes.
I didn't even know what dog repellent was before looking into this stuff.
Like, dog repellent in my house is literally just like the vacuum cleaner.
Yeah.
So.
So yes, so got it. Cops who steal are bad and get fired. Cops who murder Black Americans are put on paid leave if they face any consequences at all. So
Right.
got it. Clearly. Okay. But this seems to be like a really major stressor in his life, obviously. And this is like the time when he transitions from being the East Area rapist to the original Night Stalker, who not only rapes and terrorizes his victims, but also murders them, usually by bludgeoning. So, yes. So
nice.
the original Night Stalker, like purposeful murders begin. So in 1980, he buys a home in Citrus Heights, which ends up being like the home that he eventually is arrested in. He also, like in very quick succession in 1980, rapes the women and then murders 9 people in a matter of months. He's later taped while alone in custody talking about how Jerry made him do it, like a person who is like trapped inside of him. And makes him do bad things. And he's like, I pushed Jerry down and lived a good life, but he's like, but I did do those things and now I have to pay the price. Like he like said that like to himself. Like it's just like talking to himself. It was weird.
Interesting.
I don't have like any more information about that.
Huh.
Like his mental state or whatever. But yeah. So after that, like 5 years go by, nothing happens. He rapes and murders one last person, Janelle Cruz, and never does it again. So, and it kind of coincides with when his daughters are being born, but there is like the Janelle Cruz one happens right before his second daughter is born, and then like after that he just stops. So anyway, 1981, his first daughter is born in Sacramento. In 1982, his wife gets admitted to the California State Bar. In 1986, he does one last murder before his second daughter is born in LA. Then his daughter's born in LA. In 1989, his third daughter is born in Sacramento. So if you're following along at home, she's like our age-ish.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So by now, okay, it's 1990. He's lived in Citrus Heights for 10 years. He and his wife have lived there with their 3 young daughters. He's kind of known around the neighborhood as like Crazy Joe, but his immediate neighbors to either side see more alarming stuff than just like the occasional outburst. The kids next door like to camp on their trampoline in the backyard at night. Like not every night, but every once in a while. And sometimes like he would come out and they would hear him muttering under his like pacing in like circles and muttering under his breath about how like I'll kill them like da, 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 da. And they had like an inside joke about how like he must be yelling about the aliens in his attic, but like not a joke. Very scary. At one point he left them their dog was barking and he left them a voicemail threatening to bring a load of death to their home if he didn't shut the dog up. And the husband like freaked out and told him to like stay away from his family. And then later the dog died mysteriously and like they can't prove it, but they think it was him. And also I haven't mentioned this, but like he very frequently also murdered the dogs in the households where he was murdering the people. Like one of them, I think the very first attack, actually, he like murdered and like disemboweled this poodle who like was found like halfway under the bed. Like it tried to like crawl under the bed to get away from him. He's a monster.
Yeah.
He's in jail forever.
Doing this to people makes you a monster. Doing this to dogs, like it makes you even more heinous than a monster. And I'm not saying dogs' lives are at a higher value than human lives. I'm just saying dogs have done literally nothing wrong in their entire life.
Yeah.
Like, so they are at the very least more innocent than humans.
Right. So then in 1991, he and his wife separate, but they don't officially get a divorce until 2019. I don't really know anything about like why. It might have something to do with spousal immunity, but like until then, did she just like not notice all the time that he spent prowling at night? Like, it's not her fault, but it is weird. Like,
yeah, it is weird.
would you not? I don't know. Maybe they didn't sleep in the same room. I have no idea. I would love to know more.
Yeah. I'm gonna let my dogs in this room because I feel really sad right now thinking about anyone hurting
Aw.
them.
Okay, that makes
One
sense.
sec. Come on, friends. Okay, they're both here and they're alive. I don't have to worry. Nobody has broken into the house and caused them harm. Hey, baby. Hi,
Aw.
sweet girl.
Yeah.
Hi.
Okay.
Is that you?
This is the weird part that is not in any of the like podcasts or anything that I had to do some digging to find. I think in 2000 his oldest daughter had a baby. So she was like 19 and the father of the baby was not like a present father. So I think she moved in to his like her childhood home in Citrus Heights with her dad to help him raise his granddaughter. And like by all accounts, it seems like he did a really good job of providing for them. Like he did every load of laundry. Like his oldest daughter is 38 now. Is that right? Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Yes. His oldest daughter is 38 and has a 19-year-old. And like the 38-year-old daughter says that like he's done every load of laundry her entire life. Like he seems to like thrive providing for people.
It's just so strange. I almost like, do we know if he got on some kind of medication at any point, or
that's a good question.
like
I don't know.
actually took responsibility for any potential mental illness at any time? I wonder.
I don't know.
I mean, it's not like that information would be public. That would be medical information,
but like he was even like there was a pot roast in the oven when the officers arrived to arrest him. He's like 72 years old or like 74 or something when he got arrested. So we don't know a ton about like this part of his life. He's not raping and murdering, so yay. In 2012 he gets arrested for a DUI. In 2017 he retires from his job at Save Mart. So after he's not a police officer, I think he works as like a truck mechanic, maybe for Save Mart. But he retires in 2017, but he worked until he was 72 to support his daughter and granddaughter.
wow.
Like people are so complicated.
His family must have been so fucked up
Yes.
when they found all of this out. Like
there were some like really weird victim statements or like family statements, and a lot of them talked about like the abuse that he suffered from his dad, not as like an excuse, but just
like as maybe why he was crazy Joe to the neighbors.
Right.
But
yeah. And then in 2018, all this time, really, DNA technology is getting better and better and better. Investigators submit a sample of his DNA to GED-Match, GED Match, which is kind of like 23andMe, which finds a distant relative of his. And by distant, I mean incredibly distant, like on the order of like great.
They found his like sixth cousin.
Yeah. Like, and some really smart, dedicated people spent hours and hours and hours and months eliminating suspects until they could narrow it down to six six guys who like weren't ruled out by like where they lived or when they were in jail and and they ran the DNA of the Golden State Killer to see his phenotypes, and it came back that he had blue eyes. So they pulled the California driver's licenses for those six suspects that weren't eliminated, and Joseph DeAngelo was the only one with blue eyes. So
wow.
Yes, I know, crazy. So they stake out his house. They pull a used tissue from his trash, and it's an exact match. So finally, on April 24th, 2018, he was arrested 34 years after his last rape and murder. Crazy.
34 years. That's...
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he's still alive. He was still living in Citrus Heights.
It's just so long for all those victims to go
Yeah.
with no answers.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but because of California's statute of limitations on pre-2017 rape cases, DeAngelo could not be charged with the 1970s rapes. I just want to point out that that's a law in place that is designed to protect criminals. And in this case, it's protecting rapists. I would like to see some more laws that protect victims and survivors.
Yep.
Yep. So he's charged with the 13 like related kidnapping and abduction attempts, but like none of the shit he's charged with. I mean, whatever. He's going to jail forever, but
Right.
because of all the murders. But like he's not charged with any of the sexual assaults and stuff, which is just nuts.
Because again, sexual assault isn't seen as like that bad of a crime, or at least wasn't at the time. So it was like, oh, it's fine.
Right. Oh, and I forgot to mention this. And just because like we made that rule with the Jeffrey Epstein podcast, if you are a weird freak about women, we have to talk about your dick. He has a very tiny penis. Like at one point, the investigators wanted all the doctors to turn over patients that they had that had micro penises. Like that's how they were gonna like find, or that's like one of the ways that the investigators at the time wanted to like search for the Golden State Killer is through his doctor's records about his tiny penis.
Interesting. And you almost wonder if like, again, toxic masculinity like devalues men because of the size of their dick. And so if that just created like additional like hatreds towards him, or like towards himself, you know, and he capitalized on that by hating other people, particularly women. But yeah, like that's interesting.
Yes. So then even more recently, June 29th, 2020, he pled guilty to all the things. As a plea bargain, he was spared the death penalty, but he also admitted to like all this stuff, including the rapes. So that gave some like closure to the victims and stuff.
Yeah.
And then on August 21st, 2020, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And I'm going to play you what he said, like his one opportunity at his trial to talk after all the victims gave their statements and stuff. I'm going to play it for you right now. It's like 30 seconds long. All he says is, I've listened to all your statements, each one of them, and I'm truly sorry to everyone I've hurt. Thank you, Your Honor. That's fucking it. Ben, you can like take that out. You can let like him read it, but
yeah, this doesn't sound like a guy who is actually really that sorry.
Yeah. It reminded me of, so Bonnie said that when they were breaking up, he used a lot of like platitudes and like, I feel like when I'm watching The Bachelor, a lot of the time, like sometimes, like Luke P, like
so
he talks,
generic,
but he's not saying anything.
Yeah,
like that's what I feel like that is. Like he spoke, but like, what are you like? I'm truly sorry to everyone I've hurt. Thank you. Like,
yeah,
are you a robot?
It's just like cliche, generic, like movie lines almost. Yeah. Like, yeah.
So when Bonnie finds out, you know, because like she was just as surprised as everybody else, she didn't know. So when she finds out that people are saying she broke his heart and that's why he ended up the way she is, she's like, fuck that. She refuses to take responsibility, which good for her.
Yeah. Plus, like, he obviously had issues way before he ever met her.
For sure. Yes. So things that I want to make sure that like everybody leaves this podcast understanding, like especially at the time, cops from different departments were super territorial, and they didn't really work together. Like the Goleta is where a lot of the original Night Stalker crimes happen, like the murders. They even like to this day, I think kind of had to be like coerced into, because this whole time they were like, this is a different guy. Like they were like, it's not the same guy. We're not gonna participate. Like even just in the last couple of years, they still had to like have their arm twisted to,
because they
like,
didn't want to make it look bad. Like they
Exactly.
didn't want to look bad themselves.
It's not about you. Like, Jesus Christ. Now you look worse. It's embarrassing. I don't know.
And then police departments do this all the time and on so many different issues. And like, I get it. Nobody wants to look bad, but like if you admitting that you fucked up means you could save someone's life.
Yes.
I don't know. Maybe do it. Like when I fuck up at my job, nobody's going to die. Like we're just going to have to reallocate a budget or something because I made a mistake or something gets done later than we planned. Like very trivial bureaucratic things. Nobody dies. No, like, ugh.
Yes. And also, like, when I think people need to be like really creative when they're thinking about defunding the police, because like if there was a system in place that could have like alerted people to these similar crimes, which I think there kind of is now with like VICAP and stuff, but like I don't know, it just seems like if we put like Mark Zuckerberg in charge of that, it would be, we'd have shit solved. We'd have so much shit solved. Like, I don't know. So allocating like funds to that is more effective than even like detectives, although you can also use it to do that. But okay, anyway, I'll talk about that a little bit at the end. But I think I pointed this out earlier, but yeah, while the police are like so busy not catching the Golden State Killer, they are arresting Black and brown people for nonviolent drug charges and filling up prisons that way. Also, society as a whole just like treated rape like it was no big deal, like it was a property crime, and there was so much stigma around it, which is really sad when you realize like how common sexual violence is. And not like that degree of violence, but still, like the shame belongs to Joseph DeAngelo. Like the shame belongs to the person who did the crime, who like perpetuated the violence. Like you did nothing wrong. And you can like, you should give that back to them. Like you have no reason to be ashamed. But that culture of shame and silence is also part of the reason that he got away with it for so long. There was so much victim blaming. Like, what were you doing undressing in front of, with the blinds open like that? Like, it's like, oh my God, shut the fuck up. Just generally makes me want to scream inside my heart. But yeah, if you need permission, or if you've experienced sexual violence and you need permission to let go of that shame, here, have it, because that is not for you.
Yeah, we give you that permission. In fact, we demand it.
Yes.
You get rid of that shame.
Yep.
Right now.
So he is going to jail forever and ever. I don't know. I'm thankful for like dedicated detectives like Paul Holes and people who just generally give a shit, like Michelle McNamara, who honestly I count as another one of the Golden State Killer's victims, because she died writing the book about him because she was on like a combination of substances that probably led to her overdose, led to her accidental overdose, including, didn't we just make a joke about Adderall like last week, including Adderall and fentanyl? So maybe we should not joke about that, I guess.
We apologize.
We do.
But also I might need Adderall medically.
Ben, maybe just take the parts about Adderall out. Yeah. I don't know. How should I end, I guess?
There's a lot of reasons that the Golden State Killer went uncaught for so many years.
Yes.
Some of them are failures of the police. Some of them are failures of people, specifically Bonnie's dad. Mm-hmm. Some of them are failures of our society in general.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's important that we recognize those it's important that we continue to prioritize victims and survivors of
Yes.
any kind of violence or abuse, especially sexual assault. And it's important that we continue to make progress in things like, you know, victims' rights and survivors and their rights, and that we actually have things written into law, and
Yes.
that we have maybe not a statute of limitations on violent offenses, particularly things like rape, because that's bullshit. And
Right.
make sure that you know that the people that you're voting for, and make sure that you know that the people who represent you in government know that. They have to know these things are important to us as their constituents. And if they're refusing to hear it, maybe they shouldn't have their jobs.
Right. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So we say it, we've said it before, believe women, believe survivors. And if somebody opens up to you and feels comfortable talking to you about something, that is like such an honor, honestly. And just make sure to listen and be supportive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Especially when you see things like toxic masculinity, like call that out, call that shit out, because you never know when it might actually like save somebody's life.
Yeah,
or
and also like name it, because like
name it.
A lot of times it's so helpful to help somebody, like if they've never experienced something like gaslighting or something like that before, they don't understand it, and they don't like, once you know what it is, it's so much easier to like identify and fix and or exit the situation or whatever. So yeah. And also, if you've experienced any kind of sexual violence, there's nothing wrong with you. That is just something that happened to you. It doesn't have anything to do with your worth or anything like that. So if you want, here's our weekly actions. Those are some of our weekly actions. Just constant state of believing survivors. But if you have ever done one of those DNA tests, you can also upload your DNA to GEDmatch, which I have done. And if you have a fourth cousin who's a rapist, you might help get them caught, which is great, because that's what should happen to people who rape other people.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And also don't get sucked into conspiracies about your DNA being like used against you or whatever. I mean, unless you are a rapist, and then you deserve to have your DNA used against you. But like, don't be like, well, the government can't have it. If the government wants it, they already have it.
Yeah. I
like,
mean,
even if you're an anti-vaxxer.
Yeah.
So maybe slow down, QAnon.
For sure.
Whoa, boy.
But yeah, don't feel bad if your DNA helps catch somebody. Like, you'll never know. He'll never know. You caught a bad guy. Good job. Also, this is important. Please put your own fucking daughters above strange men who come to your house in the middle of the night with guns. Like, Bonnie's dad didn't want to ruin Joseph DeAngelo's future by calling the cops, which ruined the futures of, well, I don't want to say, I mean, like, I don't want to make it sound like people's futures are ruined if they've experienced sexual violence. That's not true at all. But like, so much harm could have been prevented if only he like saw his daughter's future as important as Joseph DeAngelo's. You know, I mean, she wanted to be a fucking doctor, and meanwhile he like wants to be a police officer just so he's like can boss people around. Yeah. Yep. Also, defund the police. Fund the social services that would have either helped Joseph DeAngelo when he was younger, or hire competent investigators or enough investigators who could have stopped him. There is a really big, actually, never mind. Do you want to, I don't know that much about it in the backlog. There's just like an extensive backlog of
there's a lot of untested rape kits, and there's an organization called End the Backlog that's committed to getting those rape kits tested, and it's very important. So that is a great place to donate your money to.
Yeah.
And sometimes even like the murderino makers that are associated or affiliated with My Favorite Murder podcast will
Mhm.
have like a percentage of
Oh
their
yeah.
sales go towards end the backlog, which is very, very cool. And just like another thing to keep in mind, and kind of that little like gentle reminder to support small businesses and support individuals who are like running their own shops and stuff, especially right now during a pandemic. Sometimes,
Mhm.
you know, their Etsy shop is their, you know, spare money, and right now it might be the only thing they've got. So just a little bit of a reminder there,
Yeah.
with End the Backlog. Or even though this wouldn't relate to Golden State Killer, missing and murdered Indigenous women,
Oh yeah.
a hugely overlooked population of victims and survivors. Also, a great place to throw your dollars, throw your attention, throw your voice.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit. I know I talked about text banking at the top, but the schedule for those is in our link tree. Indivisible does pretty regular text banking trainings. I think you can just Google it, or I'll try to put the link in our link tree. But the training is excellent. It's not one of those like shittily run trainings. Like it's really good. I felt very comfortable text banking for the first time. It was fun. And I like I like writing the letters. I like that having that stockpile. But like I know that I talked to 26 people who didn't really wanted to vote by mail, but didn't have what they needed to vote by mail, that have now applied to get their ballot in the mail. And I know that happened because I texted them. So that was very satisfying. We happen to be texting to Pennsylvania, but it changes all the time. I actually it hasn't even been announced yet what next week will be, so we will see. But I'll get to talk to somebody else or other people from other parts of America, which is exciting.
Self-care corner.
Oh wait, I have one more.
Okay.
This is everybody's last.
Delete my self-care corner, Ben.
Sorry. Yeah, delete
Delete me sounding
premature self-care corner. We're not taking care of ourselves yet.
We are not.
Do you want to say the vote forward thing? It's this episode will come out, and then I think the vote forward letter writing is the next day or 2 days. Or
no, you can say it, because I'm actually going to miss it now that we're taking our vacation, and I feel really bad about it. I almost made Scott delay it, and then I realized
Sarah Kensier, I don't think is going either. I think it's just Andrea. I'll tell you how it goes.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway. And then if letter writing does sound good to you, this is your last chance to sign up to register for the vote forward letters that we are writing on September 2nd. Yes.
Yep.
So you can still register for that at the link in our link tree, which is in our Twitter and Instagram bios, as always. Join me. I think Morgan's taking a socially distant vacation, which sounds very nice. So I will be there, but I also, to stick with my Pennsylvania theme, I wrote my 20 vote forward letters this week to Pennsylvania. So, and I did, this particular batch was very pretty. I spent a long time coordinating the colors and stuff, which I'm hoping makes people want to vote even more. But I have no evidence of this.
Yeah. And if you have not listened to our episode that came out, well, I guess it'll be 2 weeks by the time you're listening to this, but with Mike Mineta from Wolfpack, you'll remember that we mentioned, that whole let's have a 28th Amendment and actually end corruption in Washington, and maybe have some campaign finance reform, et cetera, et cetera. Listen to it. It's a great episode. But there is a virtual warrior workshop with Wolfpack on September 25th through the 27th. So it's all online. Super great. You can still sign up for it. You should sign up for it. Yeah. It's very important, very cool. So yeah, just another little thing to mark on your calendars.
Yeah. Wait, I'm sorry. I want to write that down. Can you tell me again? Virtual warrior.
Yep. Virtual warrior workshop with
Okay.
Wolfpack.
Okay.
Also, if you're Googling Wolfpack, remember it's wolf and then hyphen PAC. Lots of things come up on Google if you just search Wolfpack.
A lot of majestic pictures.
Lots of things, lots of t-shirts.
No, thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, just a reminder for that. Yeah. And the virtual warrior workshop. And I mean, even if you poke around on their website, they have lots of things going on frequently. So Wolfpack's very cool. Even before we got to interview someone from Wolfpack, they were cool, but now they're extra cool. So.
Right. Also, I have a question. I think we will probably end up doing this either way, but if we had a blog that went along with these episodes, would that be helpful to anybody? Please let us know.
Yeah.
I understand that you can't communicate with us this way, but if you even just like if you know one of us personally, if you could send us a text message or an email at fymipod@gmail.com or an Instagram message or Twitter or whatever. Because if nobody wants it, I don't want to spend my time doing it, but I also feel like we could probably make that happen. So
yeah,
let us know.
Give you a blog. We'll give the people what they want. And if they want the blog, we'll give you the blog.
Right. But we ought to know. This, honestly, when I created a podcast, I thought it would be a lot more like back and forth. And it feels a lot more like talking at people. Like some of my friends are like, I feel like I know what's going on in your life. And it's like, I feel like we haven't talked in months. Okay. Sorry, Ben, you can take that out. That is, who cares? Okay, but I think that's it. Okay, now do you want to talk about self-care? What's some good self-care?
Okay, so I am taking a vacation, a socially distant vacation, the only kind of vacation that anyone should be taking right now. Right. So I will be doing some hiking and some camping. About the only non-socially distant thing I might do is try to find a ranch where I can ride a horse.
Yes, very
nice.
I
want to ride a horse in some mountains, which is, I mean,
where
also pretty socially distant. Utah, Wyoming, Colorado.
Yeah, when are you coming back?
General West. I think I'll be back Labor Day. That's the plan. So, yeah, it should be fun. I don't even remember the last time I actually took a vacation. I think it was right before I started working at the health department.
That's what I was going to say.
I think that was my last vacation. That was a long time ago. Hold on, my dog is eating something. Hey, what are you eating? Hey. Why would you put that in your mouth? Honey, that had to not be comfortable. Why? Anyway.
Crisis averted.
Crisis averted.
Okay.
No, and now you want some love too. Hello.
Well, that's exciting. I bet that'll be beautiful. I can't wait to see pictures.
Yes, I'm very much looking forward to it. I like nature and just getting away a little bit. And yeah, it's been a really long time. Sure. So I think it'll be great. And I am very much looking forward to it. So yeah. What about you? I know you've got some self-care and some kitten corner updates to give us.
I do. So I think I told you this already. My resting heart rate is usually 58 to 60, and it has been steadily climbing during the month of August up to mid 70s, which feels crazy. I just feel so anxious all the time. And I talked to my therapist about it this morning, and he was like, well, I think it's pretty clearly election related. And it's yeah, I agree. So what we kind of decided was that I'm only going to check the news at 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. And after 3 p.m., I don't need to know what's going on until 10 a.m. the next day. And the world's not going to end because I just think, I don't know, it's too much. It's too much. And the election is still too far away to be this anxious right now. So
that's true.
Yes. So
I don't have that kind of self-control. So if the world does end, I'll just text you.
Oh, that's even better. That makes me feel better.
I got
Perfect. So yeah, so that's what I'm going to try. I will report back and let you know how it goes, but I feel like that would probably make my nights and my mornings better. Like, I don't even have a job. Nobody's paying me to check my emails in the morning. There's no reason that I need to wake up and immediately be inundated by all the awful stuff. So yes, I feel like this will be good. So there's your therapy. If you didn't go to therapy this week, there's your therapy. Try to limit your news intake. And if you're able to do that, let me know how. And I got our new foster kittens. They are teeny tiny. There's 5 of them. They're little like gray and tan tabbies. I think there's 3 boys and 2 girls. They were an owner surrender, so like we don't usually get to find out that much about them, but I know that this mama cat had 7 kittens, and I think they were weaned already, so they were gonna like neuter or spay the mama cat and then get her adopted. She's been adopted, and they were gonna break her litter into a group of 3 and a group of 4. And I was texting the vet and I was like, we'll take 4 of them. And then the next day she was like, the other foster only took 2. Do you want? I was like, yes, give me that one right now. So now we have 5. I'll put a picture up on Instagram. They're very cute.
They're so cute.
They I don't think we've had 5-week, like these are the youngest we've had, I think. I mean, aside from like the newborn ones that we only had for a couple weeks. But I was like, honestly, these are kind of boring. Like they don't really do anything. They just sit there. They're very fluffy, but that's about it. They like don't give a shit about me. But I think now they're 6 weeks old and their like personalities are starting to come out, and they're starting to like play and figure out how to use their claws. And they're like turning into real cats. It's cute.
They're seriously so cute. I love them. I want every cat.
I know. Maybe you can meet these ones. Maybe we can figure out I'll probably have them for like 6 weeks. So,
yeah, I hope we can figure that out.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
Do you want to read our most recent review that we
got? Oh my goodness. Okay. So we love getting reviews.
We do.
I mean, we love getting 5-star reviews, but here is one from Murdana. I don't know exactly. I'm Miirdana. I don't know who you are, but I love you.
Well, that's even more fun.
Yeah. Like seriously, we don't know you, but we love you.
Yes.
So, their review is one of my fave podcasts. Love driving to work and listening to this podcast. I always look forward to listening to the next episode. These ladies do an amazing job explaining current events and are truly inspiring. I've gotten involved in local politics and different nonprofit/campaign initiatives because of the help of these 2. Thank you, Katie and Morgan. Smiley face. Thank you. It seriously, like this week has been hell. Anybody who has been alive has noticed that. This made my week.
I know. It's like, oh, okay, I will just keep going then. This is all worth it. I understand. Perfect. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
If anybody else feels like leaving us a review, we read them, we notice them, and we love them. And it helps other people find us. So we would really appreciate it. Okay. Somehow this episode took an hour and 42 minutes. Whoops. So might have to turn this into a 2-parter. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe as a society we could respect women a little bit more. I think that'd be great.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Okay, so you have fun on your vacation, and I'll try to record some episodes without you that you would be proud to I don't know, call your own.
Katie, I am proud of everything you do.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well then, we will, or at least I will talk to you guys next week. And in the meantime,
I will talk to you guys next week. And in the meantime, stay. Wow, that wasn't a word. Okay. I'm going to try one more time. I will talk to you guys next week. And in the meantime, stay sexy.
And end the backlog.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Bye.
Bye.
For Your Misinformation is part of the Demcast family of podcasts. Thank you guys so much for listening to For Your Misinformation. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast, and if you like it, give us a rating and a review. It helps us find more listeners, and the more of us there are, the better.
And make sure you're following along on Instagram and Twitter at FYMI Pod.
Shout out to Kyle Dibdahl for the intro and outro music, Hope Dye for the podcast art, and Ben Schlofelt for the audio production.
We come out with new episodes every Monday.